the only three that are not producing in the family at this point. So there's a lot. I was talking to little Bill over in the back, and he goes, "There's 3 more kids that haven't produced yet." I'm like, "No." With a script written, apology. I told to stay on script. On behalf of my 4 sisters and their husbands, Mel Ross, Joanne and Terry, Barb and Beth, Lori and Mark, and Lisa and I want to thank you for attending our Father's celebration of life. I'd also personally like to thank people who came out of town. My brother-in-law Terry and Joanne from Florida, the crew from Toronto and Ottawa, our cousin Ron Lester from North Carolina, and Mom and Dad's godson Glenn Martin, who flew in from Edmonton. Before I start, I want to point out that when I say my dad, I want all my sisters to replace the word my with our dad, because I get in trouble for this all the time. So I'll be using my dad, and you can just follow along with our dad. Dad was born to 2 immigrant parents. I was going to put something in there about Trump, but I was told no. But Dad was born to 2 immigrant parents, Lily White from Walsall, just outside Birmingham in the Midlands, and Jack Bell, who was born on the Isle of Man, which is a small island in the Irish Sea located between Ireland and the UK. They had a daughter named Joan, who married Johnny Nine, a World War II veteran that had 5 kids, to whom 2 are with us today, Kenny and Rick from Toronto, and their 3 daughters, Susan, Judy, and Kareen, who unfortunately could not be with us today, but are with us in our hearts. Then Dennis met Lillian together, and they had 5 kids, 4 daughters, and an amazing son. And the rest, as they say, is history. Dad and I, as Peggy alluded to, chat 3 times on Sunday. Once after Willie Geist on the Today Show. We would always watch that, and then we'd watch Meet the Press. The first call would come in around 11 o'clock in the morning. We would discuss politics, interviews that took place. And then the second call would be made around 4-ish, as Peggy alluded to. And that was to make sure Mom and Dad were watching Sunday golf as they would make the turn with the leaderboard and heading off to the Dex 9. The third call would happen around 9-ish. And that was to make sure Dad was watching CNN and watching Caitlin Collins, who he called his girlfriend and I called my girlfriend. It was a constant battle. Jumped a few here. Willie Geist Show, which I mentioned earlier on, called Sunday Today, features a segment called A Life Well Lived, which Dad certainly did. He loved his golf in Fort Myers at the Hideaway, where Mom and Dad spent 6 months a year for 28 years of their life, enjoying their time together. They often played golf with their best friends, Steve and Suzanne Castagna. I remember one occasion when Dad and Steve won a tournament, and one of the members, a sore loser, called them sandbags. For those who don't understand that, that's cheating at golf. As the gentleman that walked by, Steve Castagna is Ukrainian, but he's also an Italian wannabe, he looked up and said, in his best Robert De Niro accent, and he promptly told him where he could go. By the way, that's Dad's first brother from another mother, Steve Castagna. They were the 2 Muppets in the balcony together. Dad loved golf, especially playing at Beaconsfield, as was mentioned, also known as Beak. He was also a big Arnold Palmer fan. They both had a lot of similarities. They were both born in 1929. Both were small men with big hearts. Both had a particular swing, almost like a baseball swing, and both walked in a peculiar fashion. Both of them loved family and friends, and both have an army. Arnie's army was famous and would follow him around the entire course. And today, as I look around this room and see how many people came out for a 94-year-old celebration of life, you can see that Dad had his own army, and that's all in you. I wish I could continue with the similarities, but Arnie was a little bit of a better golfer than Dad. His front line in life was lived having an extensive career as the only English partner of the largest francophone firm in Quebec known as Saint-Sauveur, which later became Deloitte. He also went to represent various boards in Montreal as chairman, and then stepping down to the age of 90. And those 2 boards were the Strauss Foundation and the Batten Estate, and he worked all the way up until last month. The front nine included lots of time spent with Pat and Eddie. They were relatives and also best friends. Pat and Mom were cousins, of course, and Eddie and Dad go back to when they were 14 years old. For the four of them to have been with each other into their 90s is an amazing feat. Eddie was Dad's other brother from another mother, and Dad's best man at his wedding. As Dad and Mom made the turn and started to play the back nine in life, they could look at their lives and the ever-growing grandkids, great-grandkids, and great-great-grandkids. Last month, Dad got to hold Silas' child named Lily, the newest addition to the family and the latest great-grandchild. Dad had various names throughout his life. He was born with the name John Dennis Kareem Bell. That was his given name, but he was also known as Dennis, Den, Grandpa, Bampy, Grampy, Paps, and of course the most famous one of all, when Mom would give him the final warning, which was when he knew he was in trouble, which was the old triple D. Damn it, Dennis, don't. He wouldn't cross that line once hearing those words. Dad also has a great sense of humor and wit. He always had statements about things in life. He would say to me, getting old is tough, but it's better than the alternative. And the other expression was, none of us get out of here alive. One memory of his dry wit that stands out is when we were eating at a local deli called Chinoy's. And I looked across the street and it reminded me of Joe the barber shop where Dad used to get his hair cut. I asked Dad, "Do you still go to Joe's house for your haircut?" His answer was, "No." And I said, "How come?" Dad paused. "Because he's tough to get a hold of." Again, a pause, some silence. I said, "Why is that?" Dad's response was, "Because he's dead." That's kind of witty. On the back nine of his life, family was an important part of Dad and Mom's world, and made them so proud to have the ever-growing family as well as friends. He was and is loved by so many lady friends and men friends throughout the world, and especially the people at Shake Wars who always give him his breakfast, which was blueberry pancakes with English cream and a big smile from Dennis. In closing, on April 29th of this year, Willie Geist from the Sunday Today show that I mentioned at the beginning of my speech interviewed 91-year-old Carol Burnett. This is where I lose it. Willie asked, "What would your legacy be? What would your legacy be? And if you could fill in the blank," to Carol Burnett. And Carol quoted Maya Angelou. "People may forget what you did. People may forget what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And for that, our father, our grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather, husband of our mom, Lillian, he sure knew how to make people feel. And that feeling was great. In his final days, all our dad wanted was a touch of Mom's hand in his hand, a kiss on his lips, and for the rest of our lives we shall remember that. As Jim Nance would say at the Masters, a tradition like any other. The love affair between my mom and dad, Lillian and Dennis, after 7-8 years of being together, is like any other. God bless.